In order to do the highest damage in physical teams, the optimal strategy is to apply 4 vulnerable stacks and consume it with Breach to temporarily increase the amount of physical damage that the enemy can take, before you build 4 stacks of vulnerable to use Crush, which does a lot of damage. This process can take quite a long time for you to execute and drains a lot of SP in the process, but the addition of Rossi to the character roster fixes that issue since she can stack vulnerable much quicker than any other unit on the roster, and she creates a new meta where she acts as a bridge between elemental teams and physical teams, meaning that you can now build teams where the focus is to do more arts damage or elemental damage with Rossi and physical damage instead of just choosing one of them. In today's video, I'm going to break down Rossi's kit to make it very easy to understand how she works, best build, teams, and then I'll cover the rotation for one of her more optimal team compositions that covers every situation. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Battle skill. Rossi's skill applies 1 stack of vulnerable by default, but if the enemy already has a stack of vulnerable applied on them, she'll launch a follow-up attack that does heat damage and applies this special marker on the enemy for 25 seconds. The enemy will take damage over time while this marker exists, and the physical and heat damage that they can take is increased by 12%. Combo skill. To activate her combo skill, the enemy needs to have a vulnerable stack and any elemental infliction or arts infliction applied on them. The combo skill has 2 attack sequences. The first one is nothing special, it deals physical damage and that's it. The second sequence is where things get very interesting. It gets triggered shortly after casting the first sequence, and using it will buff Rossi's crit rate by 25% and crit damage by 50%. The second sequence will also absorb all art inflictions and apply 1 stack of vulnerable. Keep in mind that it will apply 1 stack of vulnerable regardless of the amount of arts inflictions that was consumed. So the more efficient strategy is to have just 1 stack of arts infliction on the enemy for Rossi to consume. The combo skill also has a unique mechanic where if you press the second sequence at the right time, which is when you see a yellow outline on the combo skill visual, it will apply 1 additional vulnerable stack on the enemy. So if you combine her skill and her combo skill, Rossi can easily apply 3 stacks of vulnerable on the enemy. Finally, every hit of the combo skill will heal Rossi if the enemy has the special marker from the battle skill that I mentioned earlier, and the healing skills of her intellect. Ultimate. This is where Rossi's damage is heavily focused. This ability will also increase Rossi's crit damage by 60% if any of the hits from the ultimate scores a critical hit, and it does a lot of damage. The final hit from the ultimate will always apply 1 stack of heat, and this will be important later on during the rotation section of this video. Build. Her weapon is a must-have if you want to do high damage in an elemental plus physical hybrid team composition. At max refinement with essence or duplicate, you should expect an increase in DPS of about 15 to 20%. If you cannot get her weapon for any reason, the Battle Pass weapon Glorious Memory is her best alternative. At no refinement, it reaches about 75 to 80% DPS of her signature weapon with no refinement, but when it's fully refined with essence or duplicate, it reaches 90% DPS of her signature weapon with no refinement. If you cannot get the Battle Pass weapon for any reason, you can use Sundering Steel as a free-to-play alternative. For her essence, if you're using her signature weapon, prioritize a 5-star one with agility boost, critical rate boost, and finally Fracture, which increases the buffs from her signature weapon passive. For her gear, best in slot will be the MI Security because of the crit rate passive from her combo skill. The armor should be MI Security Armor T1, gloves should be Redeemer Gloves because it provides more attack due to the 86 agility. But since it doesn't provide any intellect, Rossi will not get that much healing after casting her combo skill, and this is very important if she's going to be your on-fielder with no healer in the team. So a more balanced build should be MI Security Gloves T1, but if you plan to use a healer on your team like Ardelia, for example, feel free to use Redeemer Gloves. The first kit and the second kit should both be MI Security Scope T1. Team options. Rossi's team options can be separated into two categories: physical and hybrid. For physical teams, you can run Rossi Akakuri for SP recovery and provides arts infliction that can be converted into vulnerable stack from Rossi, Shen for vulnerable stacks application, and Dapan to do crush damage. This team is very affordable because there's only one 6-star unit on the team, which is Rossi. Now let's make some modifications to this team to improve our damage based on the units that you have on your account. Dapan can be replaced with Enmin since Enmin is much better in terms of raw damage. Akakuri can be replaced with Wolfguard for heat infliction, but I highly recommend that you stick with Akakuri because Wolfguard is better suited for Levitain due to his ultimate able to forcibly apply combustion. So let's maintain Akakuri. Shen can be replaced with Pogranishnik to cause Breach, which allows Enmin to do more physical damage. And the best part about this team is that SP will not be an issue since Pogranishnik and Akakuri can recover SP. For hybrid teams, you can run Rossi, Gilberta for art susceptibility debuff, crowd control, and it becomes much easier to get all the art susceptibility since Rossi makes it possible to stack 4 vulnerable within a short amount of time. Ardelia for arts and physical susceptibility debuff, and Enmin to do crush damage. This team will be highly recommended because it ensures survivability due to healing from Ardelia and crowd control from Gilberta, but SP recovery is a major disadvantage that can make your rotations quite longer, so you can replace Ardelia with Akakuri for SP recovery and arts infliction. However, if you can properly manage your SP through more final strikes within a short amount of time, you can maintain Ardelia or replace her with Perlica for electrification, which increases the damage of Rossi from her ultimate. With that said, I'm gonna cover the rotations for Rossi, Gilberta, Ardelia, and Enmin hybrid team composition. Here are the builds that I'm running on all teammates. Rossi and Enmin will be on level 1 weapon because I don't want to kill the boss too early. Since endgame modes in Enfield starts you off with 0 energy, I'm gonna spam all my ultimates so that we can begin from scratch. I'll be putting shorthand words like FS, CS, and BS on screen to show you guys the rotation sequence. So this is what they mean in case you're confused later on. You first start by using Gilberta's skill and use a final strike to get Ardelia's combo skill before Gilberta's skill can apply a nature stack. This will trigger Enmin's combo skill, which is only needed when his ult is back up and running, but we'll get another one later, so feel free to use it. The corrosion from Ardelia will trigger Gilberta's combo skill for you to use, which will also trigger Rossi's combo skill, so you can use it and time it perfectly to absorb the nature stack and apply 2 additional vulnerable. Cast Ardelia's skill to absorb the corrosion and apply the physical and art susceptibility. Now use Rossi's skill to apply the final vulnerable and use Enmin's skill to crush the enemy. Now we need to repeat the exact sequence until Rossi, Enmin, and Gilberta's ultimate are fully recharged. Use a final strike with Rossi to trigger Ardelia's combo skill again, which will then trigger Enmin's combo skill for you to use. Again, Enmin's combo skill is not really needed here since her ultimate is not back up, but we'll get it back again. Use Gilberta's skill and final strike for SP recovery. Gilberta's combo skill is back up again because of the corrosion from Ardelia, so we can use it to apply 1 stack of vulnerable. This will trigger Rossi's combo skill, so use it and perfectly time the second sequence to apply 2 additional vulnerable. The corrosion from Ardelia is about to run out, so this is the perfect time to use her skill to grant the entire team the physical and art susceptibility debuff. And it's important that you delay the skill for as long as possible so that the physical and art susceptibility can last long enough for Rossi and Enmin. Now, just like we did before, use Rossi's skill to apply the final vulnerable and buff physical and heat damage. We are done with the preparation phase, so let's start with the damage phase of the rotation. Cast Gilberta's ultimate and Rossi's ultimate. The final hit of Rossi's ultimate will react with the nature from Gilberta to trigger Gilberta and Rossi's combo skill, so you can use any of them here to trigger Enmin's combo skill for you to use. Now, as soon as Enmin's combo skill lands, use her ultimate to remove the Originum crystals from the combo skill, which does more physical damage, and use her skill to remove all the vulnerable stacks and crush the enemy, dealing massive damage. And that's basically it for the hybrid rotation. Feel free to modify this rotation with different team compositions based on your personal preference, but at least the rotation guide that I just gave you should give you a general idea of the conditions that you need to satisfy to do the highest damage. The best early potential that I recommend is P1 since it reduces the SP cost or returns SP when she uses her skill on an enemy inflicted with vulnerable, which can help speed up your rotations. But keep in mind that it's not really a must-have because teammates like Pogranishnik and Akikuri can help with SP recovery. The rest of the potentials is up to you per your own personal preference. That'll be all for my Rossi character breakdown. I accept donations in the form of likes and subscribers, and our Discord link will also be in the pinned comment if you're having any issues with Enfield or you just want a place to chill or hang out. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.